What's going on, everyone? What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, my name is Akeemkhaynes. I'm a two-time Olympian, Olympic bronze medalist, author, motivational speaker, and sports commentator. On my channel, we talk boxing, MMA, track and field, and of course, motivation and encouraging content. If this is something that you enjoy, then I hope that you subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get into the video. Caleb Plant versus David Benavidez. This on paper has all the makings to be the fight of the year, or at least one of the candidates, right? The history between these two, the animosity, the strong dislikes, just everything leading up to this fight. The storyline adds up. This is a big fight and a very good fight card as well. Let's get into it. Let's start with Caleb Plant. 23 wins, 1 loss, 13 wins by way of knockout. The former IBF super middleweight champion. Caleb made a big statement in his last fight against Anthony Dirrell. Dirrell was a little older, yes. Not as sharp as he used to be, yes. But how Caleb got the win was most impressive because we didn't think Caleb was that big of a puncher like that, right? We knew he could box very well, and we knew he's got good footwork, but we didn't think the power in his shots were heavy. But honestly, things seem to be a little bit different for Caleb. After suffering his first loss against Canelo, he's always been confident, right? But he's moving a little bit more confidently after the fight against Anthony Dirrell. Caleb is a guy who is always locked in, man. I mean, I don't think he should be counted out by no means in this fight. Caleb is a tough night for anyone in that division. The man can fight, and his skills are legit. Now, David Benavidez is a come-forward pressure fighter, so he's going to be on Caleb all night. He's going to come forward every single round. Similar to Canelo Alvarez when he goes on the attack. Caleb's fight against Canelo, right? Plant looked very sharp early in that fight. He had a lot of success countering for a good portion of that fight. Canelo, when he would come in, maybe too overly aggressive or trying to land a power shot, Caleb Plant will counter him and he will catch him and slip him with a shot and slip out of his way, using his jab and staying off the ropes as best as he could. He was moving very well inside the ring and taking what was given to him. You know, against Canelo, especially when he is in this division, you have to be strategic with how you fight him because he is going to anticipate where you are going to be. And if he's confident, he's going to bring that pressure forward. Now, I don't remember the scorecards of all the judges in that fight, but I mean, going into the 6th and 7th round, it was a pretty close fight. A lot of people didn't expect Caleb Plant to be able to withstand and last how long he did in that fight. But Plant was going to the body very well in that fight, slipping and rolling with some of Canelo's power punches, even though when the shots did connect, he rolled with it, so it didn't hurt as much, especially in that moment. But at the same time, sometimes he took a clean shot that landed, and I thought he took those shots very well, and I was kind of surprised that he actually took that very well. I was surprised by his Plant was really trying to time Canelo, and even though he was having success and was defensively responsible covering up and not staying in the same spot, you could see that Canelo was starting to close the gap. The constant pressure and the power punches was starting to add up. Canelo was slowly starting to slow down Plant with his shots, and the shots that weren't landing in the early rounds as the fight was going on and Caleb was getting a little bit more tired, the shots that weren't landing at the beginning were starting to land and started to find his way and started to find some openings as the fight went on. However, Caleb Plant was not backing off. Right? He was standing his ground and he was landing some good shots and still countering well, even though he was tired. But the steam on his punches was not as hot as it once was. And he found himself on the ropes a little bit more rather than in the center of the ring. He was moving a lot and his body was taking some punishment. And I think with all of that adding up with the movement he was doing inside the ring, his legs started to fade a little bit. And Canelo kind of had him right where he wanted him to be, right? Especially going to the last few rounds. We saw how that fight ended up with the knockout win for Canelo. But that was a fight to me that made me respect Caleb Plant a lot more. And I bring Canelo up because him and David Benavidez has similar styles. But here's the thing, right? As we've talked about many times on this channel, how do you respond to a loss? How does one get back up and get their groove back and their confidence and their rhythm again after suffering a loss? So Caleb Plant steps into the ring with Anthony Dirrell, a former champion in his own right. While he was aging, he still had pop in his shots, 25 wins by way of knockout. It's not a guy you can take lightly and go in thinking you're going to walk over him. Even at 38, the man can still fight. And he was landing some good shots, right? Dirrell landed some good shots. So did Plant early. And it was an interesting fight because you wanted to see how the tension in that fight was going to be, right? They were holding in parts of that fight, swinging each other to the ground. And that's what we kind of expected with all of the bad blood between them. However, you can't go into a fight with too much emotion. You have to be able to control that. And I thought Caleb handled his emotion a little bit better than Dirrell did. With every shot Dirrell was throwing, he was trying to take Caleb's head off. But Caleb did a better job of setting up his shots, not fighting with emotion. I also don't think Anthony Dirrell respected Caleb's power at all, right? Because he just kept coming forward with his chin up, and it ultimately cost him. Credit to Caleb Plant, though, for how we set up that knockout shot. That straight jab to the body with the left hand, duck and come up with the left hook. It was a beautiful knockout. It was a beautiful sequence for that knockout blow. Now, I had Caleb Plant winning that fight, but not the way how it ended. I thought he was going to win by decision, but since he's been working with Breadman, I mean, the man's really starting to sit down on his punches a lot more. So it makes this all that much more interesting. But the question is, can he do it again against the style that made him suffer his first loss? Let's talk about his opponent, David Benavidez. 26 wins, 0 losses, 23 wins by way of knockout. A lot of people consider David Benavidez the best in the super middleweight division, apart from the champion Canelo. Benavidez, man, he's a beast. You know what I'm saying, right? Like, he does a lot of things extremely well. The hand speed, the accuracy in the shots, the placement, the offensive arsenal, and the punches he has in his bag. He's very impressive to watch. It kind of seems like when you think you have him figured out and you think you can beat him and you got him figured out and you step into the ring and he's faster than what they thought. And he's a bigger puncher than they thought. And he's quicker than they thought. He's gotten much better over the years. His challenge to me was never really in the ring, right? It was all of the stuff that was happening outside of the ring that he was battling. I mean, he was stripped twice of his belt for reasons that I'm sure if you've been following boxing and following him, then you know why. But when he's dialed inside the ring, man, this dude has been excellent in the ring. I saw a recent photo of him and he looks cut. He looks right. He looks ready to get into the ring, which makes me think he's been watching a lot of tape on Caleb Plant. He knows Caleb Plant's footwork and his skills. It's not going to be an easy fight. He's not just somebody you can just walk into. This might be a fight that you are going to have to bide your time, and you need a certain level of conditioning and cardio to be able to be effective every single round and not slow down each round. So Caleb's movement is going to require a lot for David Benavidez to keep up to, which is probably why he just came in the type of shape that he's in. There's no secret. Benavidez is going to come forward the moment the bell rings, right? He wants an engaging fight. He wants to test your will, test your spirit, test your punch resistance, right? If you get lulled into fighting his fight, it's only a matter of time. Right? Sometimes he likes to taunt his opponents and they get suckered into doing the same thing. And that's when he's got you, because he's the type of fighter who punishes you from in close and lets off combinations from close range and hits you from all angles, right? He can close the gap so quickly. He's not a guy that you think you can just counter with just one punch, right? And expect that to be enough for him to get off of you. You have to fire back with flurries, right? While being responsible enough to get out of the way and don't stand there where you don't get caught with a firing response from David Benavidez. Now, when he fought Anthony Dirrell, right, Benavidez made him fight his fight, had him engaging in a brawl against the younger, stronger guy, rather than Dirrell distancing himself from him and trying to outbox him. Dirrell sometimes looked like he smothered some of his work in that fight and found himself in spots he didn't need to be in. Benavidez, man, he just put together different arrays of punches in different shots. Benavidez can sometimes come in a little overconfident sometimes with his hands down, taunting him, but he knew he could get away with that. So that's what he did. And I've said it before as well, too. When you see two fighters inside the ring and one of them is smiling when the other is throwing punches, right? Like, that's a little bit crazy, right? But this is the confidence and the fun that Benavidez has inside the ring. Now, when he fought Ronald Ellis, who had never been stopped before in his career, right? He fought very hard. Ellis fought very hard, showed a lot of heart. Even some rounds, he was the aggressor, right? And pushing the pace and pushing Benavidez back a little bit, right? Catching Benavidez with big countering shots, but Benavidez just kept coming forward. And some of the combinations he pulled off in that fight, the speed he did it in was just pretty to watch. You can tell he goes into fights with a plan, right? And not just someone who is coming forward and is just trying to impose his will, right? There's tactical approach to his placement, to the shots that he's putting, right? He's strategic in there. I think he's a smarter boxer IQ-wise than people will give him credit for, right? But he broke down Ronald Ellis, and Ronald Ellis couldn't take any more. I'm glad they stopped that fight. It was a great effort from Ronald Ellis, but man, he was taking a beating. And it was the same thing when he fought Kyron Davis in the next fight. And David Lemieux in his recent fight, Lemieux was just outmatched, and stylistically, he was tailored for David Benavidez. I still remember that 6-piece left hook in the first round when he had Lemieux on the ropes. But make no mistake about it, right? This on paper is going to be David Benavidez's toughest fight, and a fight that if he is not on his P's and Q's, Caleb Plant could steal the win. He's fighting a prime, confident Caleb Plant. So who wins? I think Caleb Plant steals the early rounds of the fight. Usually he starts strong, boxes well, and is defensively responsible, taking what's given to him, uses his jab. He looks very sharp early in the fight. But I'm just wondering if he can keep that up the whole 12 rounds if it does go that far, right? Benavidez puts so much pressure on his opponents, it can mentally wear you down before it wears down your body physically, right? We said in the Canelo fight that at some point, Caleb Plant was going to have to fight, right? He was going to have to stand and trade in certain parts of that fight. Can his power carry over in the latter rounds when the pressure is on early? It didn't carry over against Canelo. Will it carry over against David Benavidez? The more confident David Benavidez gets, the more his hands will be flying. The way he punches, he might get off 6 combinations before Plant can get off 1. But at the same time, Caleb Plant has the speed and the countering ability that can give David Benavidez some problem and have a lot of success in that department throughout this fight. But I'm not sure I can see him doing that 12 rounds, withstanding the amount of pressure that is going to come his way and the different shots and placement and punches that is going to come. So I'm taking David Benavidez to win this fight by late stoppage. I think Caleb Plant can outbox David Benavidez, but with this type of style, it hasn't fared well for Plant, right? When the pressure is on him and he has to move constantly in the ring and someone's firing heavy, punishing shots at him, it can be tough to withstand that every single round as you are working to have success of your own. I think this one plays out a little similar to the Canelo fight. David Benavidez winning this one by late stoppage between rounds 9 and 12 to me, in my opinion. But what are your thoughts on this fight? Who do you have winning? Let me know in the comments section below. It's a great fight. If you would like to support the channel, there's a couple ways that you can do so. You can like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you would like to support by way of donation, you can find options in the description below. Also, my Cash App handle will be on screen as well. Any amount goes towards the growth of this channel and will be greatly, greatly appreciated. So with all that being said, if you've been watching the video this long, do me a favor and subscribe to the channel, and we'll definitely see you next time.